G'day you mob, welcome to this episode of the Goss, where I sit down each week and chat with my old man, my dad, about the gossip, the news this week. Most of these stories are down under, though we don't stray away from interesting stories from abroad around the rest of the globe. So today we try and talk about a whole range of different topics, ranging from Victorian number plates, car number plates that were sold for $1 million, more than $1 million. We talk about a man in the Melbourne CBD stealing $800 necklaces using a fishing rod. We talk about a new genus of extinct marsupial lion that was found in Australia. We also cover the coronavirus and give you an update on what's going on with that worldwide, as well as in Australia. And then we also dive into some rather difficult conversations, some rather difficult topics, but I'm trying not to shy away from those kinds of topics. So we also talk about identity politics in Australia, things like race and gender, as well as a story that came up on ABC, I think it was on Four Corners, about young children being given hormones to prevent them going through puberty because they identified as non-binary. So we try and talk about these topics, guys, to one, inform you about these issues, to help you develop your own opinions about these issues as well, and hopefully improve your English in the process. So with that aside, guys, smack that kookaburra and let's get going. All right, Dad, what's going on?
Hey, Pete. Good to be back.
Well, welcome to this episode of The Goss. Yes. I know, we're up to number 10. Boom,
10?
a decade.
How did that happen? Yeah, yes, exactly.
So how's your week been? What have you been up to?
Oh, busy. Yeah, been to the doctor for a checkup on the heart. Everything's okay.
Yep.
Might need more surgery in a couple of months, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, you were telling me about that. So heart surgery. Does that not freak you out a little bit?
Well, you know, any surgery is freaky enough when you've got to go under a general anaesthetic. There's always a concern of complications, but this is not open heart surgery. It's all just done through a catheter, so it should be okay.
Yeah, I feel like I would like to know if I were getting surgery how it was going to be done, but at the same time, I think a lot of the time when people describe surgeries to me, and I don't know what it is, I just have that aversion to blood, and it's so weird. Like I've seen plenty of videos where surgery is happening, or some of those atrocious videos of people getting injured or whatever, and it's kind of like that doesn't disturb me, but when I think about it happening to me, that's when I get sort of freaked out. And I've forgotten, let's find out, what is the phobia called for blood, right? Phobia. Do you know the word? It's bloody obvious.
Hemophobia.
You nailed it. Yeah. You nailed it. Hemophobia is people who have a fear of the sight of blood. For me, the sight of blood doesn't freak me out, but the idea of having blood taken
from you.
Blood taken freaks me out, or getting injections.
Yeah.
And again, intellectually, it doesn't bother me. I understand this needs to be done, and I'll force myself to do it. But going through the process freaks me out, just getting jabbed. And I remember, as you guys can probably see from my ear here, when I was doing jiu-jitsu, we have things called cauliflower ear, where the ear gets bruised effectively by being roughed up. So boxers, rugby players, judokas, so people who do judo, and jiu-jitsu practitioners get them from being roughed up. And if you don't drain it, that the liquid in the ear turns to bone, it calcifies. Yeah. And so you have to try and drain it to avoid it being deformed really badly. Like mine's a little bit deformed, but it's not as bad. Some of them end up looking like golf balls in people's ears. But I had to go to the chemist and ask for like a pack of syringes and some alcohol and do it myself, or I would have to go to the hospital every single day that I trained, and it got worse. And it was funny because I was using the syringe on myself in the mirror, concentrating on shoving it through the skin and then pulling the blood out of my ear, and that never freaked me out.
Yeah, go to get blood out of your arm at a pathologist.
I don't know how it works. Yeah, so the weird thing is, I don't know if it was the fact that I had to concentrate myself on the needle, and there was one time where I pushed too hard and the needle went through my ear and out the other side. And it didn't bother me. Like
piercing.
Yeah. It freaked me out a little bit. But I was like, oh, all right, well, that's just,
you didn't have the studs ready to.
No, but it was funny because I was kind of like, this is strange that I can do this every single day for a month and I don't pass out, I don't faint. But when I have to go and get a vaccine, afterwards, just now out of habit, I have to lie down just because I feel like I don't want to faint. I may not, and it's so weird because I feel like such a wuss. I feel like such a pussy.
Yeah, and part of that is, obviously I'm not a psychologist, but part of that is probably psychosomatic in that it happened to you once and now you're concerned about it and therefore it's going to happen. But the problem with psychosomatic reactions is that they are real. Mm-hmm. They're not caused by the thing that you think they are, but they're still real.
Kind of like the inverted placebo effect, right?
Yeah.
Where you're afraid of this thing happening, and so because you're afraid of it happening, it happens because you freak yourself out. I know when it happens with me with having my blood out. I had to get my blood checked for something at the doctor, and just recently, in the last year, Kel came with me, and she rang ahead. Great doctor. She was just like, I'm going to ring the guy. I'll tell him, Pete's a bit of a wuss. He can't handle it. He's a chicken. I show up there, and the guy, instead of using a needle this time, he had a needle, but it wasn't in a syringe. It was on like the little, I guess it's like a tube, plastic tube. Yeah, and he just did the tiniest little, and it went in, pulled the blood out, and I was like, "Is that it?" I didn't even notice. But I had to lie down, put my legs up. I'm just just doing this just in case. I know I need to give my blood. I have no problem.
I'll be fine in 15 minutes. Just leave me alone.
Yeah. What about giving blood? What's it like in Australia in terms of the Red Cross and people giving blood? Is it a cultural thing where we do it more than other places? Because I have quite a few friends who do it a lot.
I don't know the details about that. I used to give blood when I was young, but then I got glandular fever. And then, I don't know what it's like now, but then the Red Cross would say, well, if you've had glandular fever, you can't give blood for 10 years.
10 years?
10 years.
Is that how long it hangs around?
Well, who knows? But, that was what their rules were.
But isn't that worse than tattoos? If you get a tattoo, it's 2 years, 4 years, something like that?
Yeah, that's because it's an unknown infection.
Well, they're worried about hepatitis C and everything, right, with tattoos.
But glandular fever was 10 years, and so I just sort of got out of the habit and then stopped. So...
That freaks me out. I would love to give blood, but I think I would have to have a general every time.
It sort of defeats the purpose of it.
I'd be more than willing to if I didn't have to be awake during the process and think about it coming out of my arm into the bag. And I have so much respect for people who can do it. One of my best friends, Tristan, who's definitely not going to be listening to this podcast, but Tristan, I respect you, mate. He has done it. I think the other day he announced on Facebook 82 times, and he's 32. So he's, 4 times a year for the since he was probably 18.
Yeah, you can't give blood, I think, unless you're over 16.
Yeah, but he's done it, I think he's done it since he's been legally of age to give blood. He's done it every single time he's been able to, because I think they make you wait a month or two or something.
A couple of months, I think. Yeah, I don't know.
But, But
interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess, on to the news. Anything you want to hit? Should we start with some funny stuff
We'll
first?
Start with the toilet paper holders. Bloody hell. This is one of these.
This really
panic
gives
buying.
You the shits.
It does give me the shits.
It gives you the shits.
And I won't even excuse the pun. It's panic buyers. You've got to sit there and go. They cause havoc because everybody panics.
Well,
and the thing is that you're forced, and it's not panic if you can see that there is a diminishing amount of toilet paper on the shelves, then you actually are buying just in case. It's the people who go it's the first half a dozen people who say, oh, geez, toilet paper's going to run out, so we'll go and hoard that. Why toilet paper? Why not cans of sardines? It's bizarre that somebody decided a few days ago that toilet paper in Australia was going to be in short supply. And I have no idea what the cause was.
Ironically, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Of course
because
it is.
Now it is.
Of course
in
it is. Of course it is. And those panic buys happen every now and then when some trigger happens. And and I remember years ago there was the gas supply. There was a major problem with the gas supply in Victoria, and the gas was off, and people went out hoarding bottles of water. And
why?
Hoard
the gas.
Exactly.
From the
Go out and buy
station.
bottles of gas maybe, but hoarding bottles of water because there was a gas shortage. And I don't understand. So panic buying. It's but the stock market did the same thing.
Yeah.
Coronavirus comes out and the stock market crashes. The stock market is going up and down, has absolutely zero to do with the economy. All it is just people betting on other people's behaviour.
Yeah.
You're going to bet that people are going to buy, so you sell. You're going to bet that people are going to sell, so you buy. It's crazy.
Well, there must be a term for it where you fear a certain outcome, and the action you take to avoid that outcome causes the outcome.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
There must be a term. Because one other example would be traffic jams, right?
Yeah.
Where people slow down where they don't need to, which causes the people behind them to slow down, and so you end up with traffic jams where if everyone had just kept doing the normal speed,
the classic
there'd be no
one is
traffic jams.
on divided roads where there's a car accident on one side,
and everyone wants to check it out.
And there's a traffic jam on the other side of the road where because there's no effect to the traffic on that side of the road. Everybody wants to slow down, or in fact, the first few people slow down, and then everybody is slowed down regardless. So
there's some beautiful stuff on traffic jams, and I think working out that roundabouts are much more effective than what are they called, four-way intersections, right? Or even lights, because it allows the free flow of people to move around that. But I remember seeing some studies when I was studying biology, and there were people working on population movement problems like that, where you have large groups of whatever it is moving around things and objects and through roads, and they were using ants to try and solve that problem by putting certain obstructions along paths and then just letting thousands of ants walk around them, and they would find the quickest and easiest route and then just follow that route, and they would use that to extrapolate out.
That study was done partially to examine getting people out of large crowds in a hurry. Say you're at the MCG, 100,000 people at a football game, and there's an emergency and you have to get people out quickly. They wanted to know, how do you deal with bottlenecks of people? Because, gates are only so wide, you can only fit so many people through. Yeah. And the irony was, that in those experiments with ants, that it was found that if you put obstructions in the way, like little bollards and things.
Pylons, right?
Pylons in the way, then the people didn't jam up, because they suddenly got into these artificial lines and followed the person in front of them rather than just trying to go for the next gap. And so it sped up the ant movement. You'd have ants on one side of a wall and a tiny little hole, and they'd all just jam up and nobody could get through. And then they put an obstacle in front of it and they just sort of zigzag in, that sort of zipper. It's how technology goes in. So it was a bit weird, but
it's pretty cool though. I love seeing those sorts of scientific studies where you might be looking at a certain problem with a certain organism or in a certain model or system, and then you end up applying it to a completely different one. One beautiful example of that are X-rays, right? They were originally used to probe space in order to take what sort of like long exposure photos effectively of the background noise of space. And then what they realized that they could use them to see bones in people's, when they were taking medical exams to have a look at people's injuries. So that was one of those beautiful ones of crossover where, and this is one of those arguments, right, with funding, why should we fund that project? That doesn't seem relevant. And then quite often it ends up being useful, but in a completely different area that might save millions or billions of dollars.
And that is, there's thousands of examples of scientific research where people have tried to answer one question and something comes up halfway along and they go, oh, that happened. And,
so what do you reckon is going to happen with the people freaking out and buying shitloads of shit tickets, bog roll, bog roll from Safeway?
I think this will be one of these ones that just goes away. I can't imagine, given the backlash on social media, I can't imagine that when those shelves get restocked in a few days' time, because it's not like that this has been going on for weeks and we're actually genuinely out of toilet paper in the country and it's all sitting in a bunch of lunatics' cellars or back rooms.
I love how that's the first concern. It's like, we don't want food, we're not worried about, hygiene, but Jesus, I want to make sure that if I end up sick, that I can go to the toilet and
Well, it was funny because I actually went shopping last night and I bought toilet paper. Toilet paper was already on our list. So it was a bit weird going down a shelf at 9 o'clock at night in a supermarket when there weren't many people around.
I'm not freaking out. I just want to go to the loo.
There wasn't much toilet paper on the shelves. They were pretty barren, so I grabbed a couple of packs. Normally I'd only buy one. Yeah, I know. Normally I'd only buy one, but so I got forced into the semi-panic buying. But the sort of the look on the person's face at the checkout was, oh, you've got sucked in as well, have you?
Well, yeah, Kel was saying to me, do you want to go and grab some? And I just said to her, I don't use it.
Well, there was that thing where, for a split second last night when Joe, your mother, and I were talking about it, we suddenly went, shit, should we go and buy some toilet paper? And she said, well, it's on the shopping list anyway, so just go shopping now, which I did. But it's sort of that, well, what do you do?
Just get the kitchen hand towels.
Exactly. Look, I actually did enjoy the article that popped up on a Facebook feed this morning about how all this sort of panic about coronavirus and things being in shortage and stuff was being propagated through the Murdoch press. And the irony of that is that if toilet paper becomes in shortage, then Murdoch's newspapers are actually going to increase in sales, not for their content, but for their second-hand use.
Well, was that what paper used to be like for outdoor dunnies?
Yeah,
Didn't it used to be newspapers stapled together and hanging on a hook?
They're tied, punch a hole through a newspaper and strips of it hanging on a hook. That was. Do you want to explain? That was a bit before my time, but I can remember it at a great aunt's place with the outdoor dunny.
Can you explain the history of the outdoor dunny?
The drop toilet.
And tell us about how that sort of came about in Australia and became such an Australian thing.
A toilet seat mounted, enclosed, but mounted over like a 10-gallon can. And this was in a little shed right at the back of the property. And every night, the poo man would come in his cart and he would exchange the semi-filled can with a fresh one. What
a shit job.
Exactly. And then take it away. And that was before sewerage and particularly in inner suburbs.
Which year? Like roughly around which times? 1800s?
Well, even way after that. I can remember them. So up until... there are a few places in the 1950s and 60s that still had it.
Good God.
But by then sewerage had become the norm. The trouble with sewerage was that in many of the suburbs that had them, which were the original suburbs settled in Melbourne, and they were, that thing, it wasn't a lot of technology that you had to build. Basically, you build a shed and put a seat over a can and have a little door on the back of the shed that could be opened. But there were laneways all behind them. So now when you go around to any development now and the back fence on your property is the other side of the back fence on the other property. But there were laneways between them. And those laneways were mostly to remove the sewage.
And they're still around Geelong and Melbourne.
See the old suburbs had those little cobbled lanes.
Yeah, laneways.
And that's what they did. These little horse-drawn carts that they'd go up and the poo man would come and collect it.
Far out.
That sort of started to disappear, but by the time it had started to disappear, and sewerage was, by the 1950s and 60s, was a common thing that, new developments just went in with sewerage in. But the older places had started to become more lower socioeconomic areas, so the people who were living there couldn't afford to put the sewerage on. Even when the sewage went, the sewage trunk line might have gone down the back lane, they dug it up, put a sewage pipe in, and so on. Then
you had to pay someone. You had to pay to
connect into it. And effectively, what you were paying was half the share of the cost of doing the length of your property or the back of your property, and the person on the other side did the other half. But if you could, they'd still put it through, but if you couldn't afford it, then they didn't connect you up to it. So it took a bit longer for some of those places to get connected.
Yeah, there's one thing, I guess you experience it today only at campsites, really, right? Where you go to drop dunnies.
Yeah.
That's about the only ones you'll ever see.
Yeah, and they're now composting, so they don't come and remove that typically. They just let it go for whatever time it is and then bury it and move the toilets along.
You wonder what the problems were back then too, with like fear of dropping things in the drop dunny, right? Because here, obviously, nowadays it's your phone you're freaking out about. You're like, if that goes, I'd pay the cost of the phone again to not have to get it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's done.
What phone?
That's it.
Have you seen my phone? I've lost it.
Yeah, and it must have been so weird back in that time too, because, I mean, at the very beginning when we had drop dunnies, you would imagine there wouldn't have been electricity.
No.
So you would have had to go in the middle of the night with a candle or something.
And I can remember going to my great aunt's place in East Malvern, which is now a very upper-class suburb in Melbourne, and going to the toilet in her backyard. And we didn't stay...
The suburb used to be shithouse.
It did, yes. Or lots of little shithouses all in the back lane.
So I'll stop with the shit jokes.
Well, we did start with toilet paper. This is only ever going to go downhill from here.
Well, shit only rolls downhill, Dad.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, you can pump it uphill to go down again, which there are pumping stations around Melbourne to move the sewage because Melbourne's so flat.
Really?
The sewage has to be pumped up again to get down to mostly Werribee or the Eastern plant down near Edithvale. Yeah, so
there you go.
Yeah, sewage stories. I can tell them all day.
There's so many good expressions, right, related to poo in Australia, and like one of the classic ones you'll hear today referring to that is built like a brick shithouse.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So built like a brick shithouse would be the guy is so strong, so big that he's built like
he's basically a cube.
Yeah, exactly. He's like a bodybuilder, right?
Yeah.
So, far out. All right, moving on. Yeah, I had a few funny ones to mention here. Victorian number plate has sold at auction for over $1 million. Did you see that news?
No. What number was it? Was it number 1?
No, that's worth a lot more now, apparently. It was number 26, and it sold for $1.11 million. With a $55,000 auctioneer's fee on top of that from Shannon's Auctions. Yeah, they were expecting it to be $600,000 to $700,000. As 20 years ago, it sold for between 70 and 80 grand. And these number plates, I guess we should sort of give a bit of background. These are the first number plates that were ever released in the different states. You would have 1, 2. Yes. These are like phone numbers back then, right?
Yeah, they started with number 1. And a school friend of mine, back in the late 60s and 70s, his mother had number 23 on her car, and his grandfather had number 8.
Jesus.
Number 8.
Well, and nowadays it's just rich, old money families generally, right, that have these number plates passed down, that they tend to be highly contained within families and passed along, and they're so sought
after. And now
after.
None of them will actually be on a car because they just get stolen.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I think I'd written down here.
On a car.
Well, I've seen a few. You see a few around Melbourne, especially on things like Lamborghinis and Ferraris and Bentleys and stuff, where you'll see, 110. But yeah, so this number plate was repressed as well 30 years ago, so it's not even the original, but it's a massive piece of history that people are so obsessed with. These number plates were first issued, I think, on motor vehicles in 1911, but they were actually only printed and given out as plates in the 1920s. And the CEO of Coles and Foster's, although I think Foster's was sold overseas, right, to an American company. Yeah, but possibly. The CEO of Coles, Peter Bartels, owns number 1, and he knocked back offers for it for $1.5 million. Yeah. So, but what car would you put it on if you had one?
What car would I put it on? Probably a 1920 T-model Ford, which is probably what it went on in the first place. But,
Jesus. I thought I would put it on an absolute shitbox of a car, just as a joke,
it's
right?
One of those episodes, isn't it? Just press delete now.
That's it. Just hit stop. Skip to the next one. But I can imagine that having I can't imagine what car you would get that's worth more than the number plate if you bought it for $1.5 million.
I remember 15 years ago, 20 years ago, seeing a story like this in a newspaper where the number plate GTHO had sold for $100,000, and this would be 20 years ago, and that was in relation to the GTHO Falcons. They were the touring cars that I think we were talking about a couple of episodes ago. Yeah, the touring cars they were the Falcon, the Ford, back in the 70s. And obviously somebody had got that personalised number plate, GTHO, to stick on their car. Yeah. And they had obviously got rid of the car but kept the number plate. And people were saying at the time that if they still had the car, they could get $20,000 for it, but the number plate is so collectible by every person who has one of those cars restored would want that number plate, and so it went for 5 times the value of the car that would have been on. So
it seems ridiculous, and I still don't get people who get personalised plates.
Yeah, personalised plate. Yeah, I'm a knob.
Well, it just instantly screams at me bogan, right? Yeah. I don't know, where you see like Shazza 5 or something, and not only that, you have to pay hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, it costs you money
to get the number plate personalised.
I remember seeing a bumper sticker, and unfortunately it was before the days of having a camera in your phone, so you couldn't just go click and take a photograph of it, but a bumper sticker next to one of those with a little arrow on it and a sign saying, "This just proves what a rich knob I am."
Well, at least they got a sense of
I can't remember what the number plate said. The bumper sticker was better than the number plate. But,
what would you get if you were going to get a personalised plate on your car? What would it be?
I honestly, I've never thought about it because I think it's just such a bizarre idea that identifying your car by some And look, because of the way number plates are done in Victoria anyway, we're restricted to 6 digits.
Yeah.
And so that makes it difficult to come up with a novel word that is still meaningful, because they've all been done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
you
sure.
You have to use numbers.
The old school nickname of Smisso, which is not much of a contraction of Smisson.
That'd be taken, you reckon?
Yeah, I'm sure that would be taken, not by a person with our surname, but it must be taken. But
I was trying to find Oz-ing.
Oz-ing.
That is taken.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'd totally get that. I would get that if it wasn't taken, but I'm not using numbers.
It'd be a lot cheaper to just get a magnetic sign and stick it on the side of your car.
Very true. G'day, mate. That was the first half of this episode of The Goss. If you would like to continue watching or continue listening to this episode, make sure that you sign up for the premium podcast or academy memberships at aussieenglish.com.au, where you will get full access to these entire episodes of this series and much, much more. You can go check that out using the links below, or just go to aussieenglish.com.au. Once again, thank you so much for joining me, mate, and I will see you next time. Peace.